Alright guys, welcome back. Today we're continuing the series rating every Fortnite chapter, and now we're on chapter 6. And before I even start, let me say this. This is not an easy chapter to talk about, not because it's complex in a good way, but because it's weirdly forgettable for how much actually happened. Now, I'm not giving the rating yet. I'm going to walk through everything. The seasons, the moments, the lack of moments, the overall vibe, and then decide where it lands. Because chapter 6 is one of those chapters that sounds better on paper than it feels in practice. To understand Chapter 6, you have to understand when it dropped. Fortnite was already massively established, packed with mechanics, modes, and expectations. So Chapter 6 didn't feel like it was trying to reinvent Fortnite. It felt like Epic saying, let's stabilize things. And that alone set expectations lower. This wasn't the next big leap. This was supposed to be a smoother experience. But smooth doesn't always mean memorable. When Chapter 6 launched, the first reaction wasn't shock. It wasn't, whoa, this changes everything. It was more like, okay, this is nice. The visuals are clean, the island felt intentional, and nothing felt broken. But nothing felt crazy either. That first impression ended up being extremely accurate for the entire chapter. Chapter 6, Season 1 is probably the best example of what this chapter does right and wrong. The map was genuinely good, POIs are spaced well, rotations made sense, and different playstyles actually worked. You could land safe, you could land aggressive, you could play in-game, you could W-key. That's good design, but Season 1 also played it very safe. No wild mechanics, no game-changing moments, no moments where everyone said, yeah, Fortnite just did something insane. It was polished, it was functional, and it was safe. And safe became the theme. But Fortnite doesn't thrive on safety. Fortnite thrives on risk. Some of these best chapters had broken items, wild mechanics, chaos that needed fixing. Chapter 6 avoided that. And while that made the game more stable, it also made it less exciting. You rarely logged in wondering what did they add today, because most days nothing changed. And this is one of the biggest issues with Chapter 6. Mid-season updates barely mattered. Earlier chapters would shift POIs, add new mechanics, and progress the story. Chapter 6 seasons usually started strong, then stayed exactly the same, which makes weeks blur together. And when weeks blur together, you stop forming memories. Season 2 was the biggest swing. This was the season where Fortnite finally showed some personality. The theme was loud, the vibe was different, and the world felt chaotic again. For a while, I was like, okay, Chapter 6 is waking up, and this season absolutely carried the chapter for a bit. But here's the problem. It was isolated. Once the season ended, most of what made it interesting disappeared. It didn't evolve into something bigger, it didn't permanently change the chapter, it was a highlight, not a turning point. Momentum is everything in Fortnite. Chapter 6 never stacked with wins. Every good idea felt temporary, every fun mechanic felt disposable, and every cool theme felt seasonal instead of foundational. So instead of building upward, that chapter kept resetting itself. That killed long-term excitement. Now let's talk story, because Fortnite used to be really good at this. Chapter-long arcs, mystery, payoff. Chapter 6 didn't really have that. It had themes, it had ideas, and it had characters, but nothing connected. There's no feeling of where this was all heading, and without that, the chapter feels directionless. Yes, Chapter 6 had events, but events alone aren't enough. They didn't permanently change the island, they didn't alter gameplay in meaningful ways, and they didn't create long-term consequences. They happened, and then the game went back to normal. And that's not what made Fortnite events legendary. What's interesting is how neutral people feel about Chapter 6. They're not angry about it, they're not obsessed about it, just indifferent. Some people say the map is great, some people say it's chill, and some people say it's boring. All of those opinions coexist because the chapter never demanded a strong reaction. On paper, Chapter 6 had multiple seasons, new ideas, big crossovers, and a solid gameplay. But emotionally, it felt small. Because nothing stacked, nothing escalated, and nothing permanently changed the experience. It was consistent, not memorable. When you think about Chapter 6, you don't think about a moment, you think about a vibe. And that vibe is, yeah, it was alright. That's not what you want for a Fortnite chapter. Chapter 6 wasn't bad, it wasn't broken, and it wasn't lazy. But it's cautious, it's quiet, and it's safe. And Fortnite has never been its best when it plays safe. So after everything, the seasons, the pacing, the events, and the lack of identity, where does Chapter 6 even land? For me, it gets a 5.8 out of 10. Not terrible, not great, but just average. A chapter you played sometimes, enjoyed, but probably won't remember years from now. If you want more videos like this, subscribe and like this. See you on the next one.